What is going on, guys? My name is Tim Ruswick, and today we're talking about progression and incentivization systems. Because this is something that I've come a long way to kind of learn about. So, if you don't know what there are, I'm going to get that to in a second. I'm just kind of tell you a quick story about like what this stuff is and why it's important. So, as you may or may not know, a couple weeks ago, I ended an 8-week series of Finish Fridays where I made eight. Well, I finished 8 different games in 8 weeks, and in the last week we did a game from scratch, which was like a mini game jam type of thing. And these were dinky little mobile games. You know, they were various different sizes and stuff, and I think a lot of them were okay. A couple of them were good in my opinion, and I think one or two of them probably are great. But what I noticed immediately when I made these mobile games, because they were mostly like high score based, right? Like you play the game for a couple minutes, you get a high score, and then you play it again and you try and beat your high score. But I noticed very quickly that while these games could be engaging and entertaining right up front, like for the first time, maybe second time, maybe third time, they get very repetitive. Even some of the more procedurally generated complex ones, like I've got ones that just they're procedural and they're different every time, they still get repetitive. And I was trying to figure out like, okay, how do some of the most successful mobile games separate their product? How do they get people coming back to the game over and over and over again? And there are a few different ways. One of them, that because I did a bunch of research into games, like I try to think of like, okay, what mobile games keep me coming back? My girlfriend plays a lot of mobile games. What mobile games keep her coming back? And I looked at games like Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, a lot of different mobile games, and those games are PvP games. So like, okay, PvP can keep someone coming back, right? Chasing loot can keep something back. But like, how do you build something into a mobile game that's maybe not multiplayer to increase the likelihood that someone's going to play your game over and over again? Well, I started to realize that like all these different games that I looked into, like Color Switch or Crossy Road, or any of these games, they're very minimal games. They're very simple games, right? Like the premise of Color Switch, the premise of Crossy Road are very minimal. But what makes the games awesome is all of the different things that you can do in the game or the things that you can unlock. So like in Crossy Road, for example, it's almost the same game every single time, but there's so many different things to unlock by just playing. Characters to unlock, all kinds of different stuff. With like and I realized that a lot of these are built-in incentivization systems for games. And so I started looking like, okay, this is what makes those games successful versus just regular old indie games that just they have high scores, right? Or they're just score based, or they're procedural, or whatever they are. Like the incentivization systems to continue playing, the stuff that you unlock over time, the stuff that you need to keep going, the reasons to come back are the things that separate the good games from the average games. And those are the games that I think ultimately become successful. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into marketing and all the different things that make a successful game, but I realize that that's a core component of games, especially mobile games, but I think games in general, some kind of incentivization system for that adds to the replay value, something that can reward the player on their second, third, fifth playthrough, something to keep them going or something to keep them grinding for it. Now, the easiest way to do this that I've found in most mobile games, a lot of them employ this method. It's basically just an in-game currency. Maybe the game is about collecting coins or something, or maybe you get a chest at the end of the level or whatever it is. But there's an in-game currency that you earn by playing the game, and then you can use that currency to purchase unlockable characters or items for them to wear, or new levels, new story content, whatever it is. That seems to work really well for incentivization system. And the cool thing about that system too is that it can double as a monetization method. So if you have a currency that unlocks additional characters and stuff, you can also have the ability to maybe buy those that currency, or buy a different currency that substitutes it, that can buy the same stuff. So you can end up with a way to monetize your game by buying different characters, but also a way to incentivize replayability. And if you can get someone playing over and over again, you can absolutely monetize the game that way. So anytime you can control eyeballs or control people's attention, which games are good at, you can definitely make money with it. And if you're trying to make it as an independent developer, I think making money with your game should be the ultimate goal, right? Like trying to actually make a living from that. So incentivization, I think, is the first step before even monetization, because like I said, I made a lot of games over the last 3 months now. I've made a lot of games, and I'm looking at the analytics of these games. I'm watching people play these games, and while they may give me good reviews up front, they may play the game a few times. They don't stick around, and so if they don't stick around, what is the point of even throwing ads in those games? There's no way that you can possibly monetize those games if people leave the game after two or three times they play it. Like mobile games specifically, right? PC games, different rules apply, or console games or whatever. But I think the general concepts still apply to those games for sure. But so if you think about games like in that respect, right? A mobile game, especially if you're monetizing with ads or something like that, or in-app purchases, you have to hold their attention. If they're going to open your app once and never look at it again, or even 3 or 5 times and never look at it again, how on earth can you make money with that game if it doesn't hold their attention for longer than that? Like if on the marketing end, if you're, let's say you're doing advertising, there's no way you can afford advertising to pay for somebody that's going to open your app twice. It's just, it's a dead end cost. Like that's too much. Whereas if you get it to where someone will play your game on average 10, 20 times before they put it down, yeah, then maybe $1 a click makes sense for kind of advertising. You know what I mean? Like, so these incentivization systems, these reward systems, these systems that add to the replayability of the game, I think are definitely worth looking into. And especially if you have a mobile game, I know we have a lot of mobile developers here on the channel. I would look into ways that you can keep players playing, whether it's through unlockables, whether it's through customized characters, or cosmetic items that they can get. There are a whole host of different ways, and I've just kind of realized personally for me that I have not done a good job implementing those in my games, and it's definitely something that I need to work on, because seeing it so clearly in the analytics that just these games don't get played more than once or twice is like, wow, okay, that's a red flag. And me thinking as a marketer, like, okay, because when I made these games, it was just to finish, right? It was just to make a thing. And after I finish Philophobia, I'm gonna have some free time in my hands, and I would like to go back to some of these games and fix them and rework them. But looking at the analytics, it's just like, okay, there's no way that I could monetize them if they're not holding attention, right? It's just, it doesn't make sense. And I've never actually thought that all the way through. That's kind of why I'm making this video, so that other people, if they're in the same boat, if they're thinking about monetizing their game, thinking of how to keep a player's intention comes before that monetization aspect. Because I just kind of realized that when I was working through my stuff. And it just makes so much sense now in hindsight, right? But I guess hindsight is always 20/20. But that's the video for today. I hope you guys found it useful. This is really something I'm looking into, and I think I'm gonna work on implementing cosmetic items, unlockables, scoreboards, just stuff to keep players playing. I think is really, really important. And I'm doing that stuff in Philophobia too, by the way. It's not to the same extent as a mobile game would be, but I'm definitely thinking about what's this going to look like the 5th playthrough or the 10th playthrough. And this stuff is really, really important. So I thought I would share it with you. If you got any questions on this, leave them below. If you have anything to add, if you have any systems that you like that keep you playing as a player, leave them down in the comments below, because I'd love to hear from you guys. Once again, I'm Tim Ruswick, and I will see you again tomorrow.